Hey, everybody, it's me. It's Todd Leonard, and welcome to our show.
I didn't know if you're being serious or not. My name is Herb Montgomery, and we're just talking.
We have three buttons that we want you to click. We want you to click the like button, we want you to click the subscribe button, and we want you to click the bell icon. And as far as we know, Donald Trump has not removed those from the YouTube channel yet. So those are still there as far as we know. So click them while you can.
If they're there, click them.
If they're not, please write your congressman.
If you're new to this channel, each week Todd and I take a moment to take a look at the upcoming weekend's lectionary reading from the Gospels, and we attempt to have a conversation about those readings, and we try to talk about them in the context of love and inclusion and social justice. Our goal is for our talking to be just talking, as in justice, and our hope is that something we might say during this conversation would inspire you along with us to do more than just talking. So, Todd, what great passage are we looking at this week?
We are in Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. Jesus goes fishing.
Yeah, so this is
talks about fishing.
Right. This is one of my favorite passages, like in the category of most traditionally, I believe, misunderstood. So the traditional interpretation is, there's the miraculous part of the story. Jesus helps them catch fish. And then he turns to them and says, follow me and I'll make you fishers of people. Fishers of people. I will, it's
the recruitment. This is the recruitment story. This is the evangelism story. This is
right. I will make you
bringing
great
people
evangelist, which is like the interpretation of this passage that has held the most adherents, the most number of adherents since the Great Awakening.
It makes sense, and no pun intended, it's watertight.
Except it's not.
Oh, man. Always playing around with the clear meaning of the text, Herb.
I know. So what I want to remind people of before we even start looking at, instead of looking at this through a Christian lens, in my blog this week, I'm inviting people to look at it through the lens of the Hebrew prophetic justice tradition, and how that tradition used the language of fishing for people, which is what Jesus and John the Baptist were, that tradition they were standing in, and that they were growing out, or that they had emerged within or out of, or that had shaped them. But I want to remind people that whenever we're talking about fishing, even if we do use it as a metaphor for evangelism, which has ended up making us complicit with colonialism, but even if we use it for evangelism, if it doesn't work well, because fishing doesn't ever work out too good for the fish. Like if we use that for evangelism, well, what are we really implying by the metaphor? And I know not all metaphors stand on all fours, but that's a pretty bad one. You know what I'm saying? Like if we go fishing, it never works out well for the fish.
Follow me with this logic. Follow me. In the early Christian church, the church created this acronym for Jesus, ichthus, which is the fish, the Jesus fish. Everybody, the shape of the fish, that represents that this is, whenever you see a fish, it means you're a follower, or this place is for followers of Jesus to be, or this is where the churches are the followers of Jesus. So, and when you capture fish, yes, they die, but in fact, when we are brought to Christ, we are invited to die.
Yeah, I don't like it.
It,
Go
it,
ahead.
it,
Go
it
ahead. Keep going.
this is, we
So
are,
we're at death call.
so that there may be a new life on the other side. I don't see the resurrection in the fish, but I do see the sacrificial death of the fish. So there you go. It doesn't work. I'm just kidding.
I'm
Um,
trying.
no, it doesn't work. But you need to say something about. Are you going to talk a little bit more about
Go
the
ahead, Todd.
connection between evangelism and colonialism?
Go ahead, Todd.
Well, because I think what we're talking about here is when you're why this passage is, it feels so natural to interpret it as evangelism, is because you're reading this gospel account through the eyes of a Pauline uh, gospel expansionist viewpoint, and you're reading it through, even further, you're reading it through the Constantinian Empire crusading Christian church that was not just about evangelizing, but forcing upon other cultures this religion of Christianity. And we have seen this coercion, even when it's not done militaristically. It's been it's been tied very much to the prosperity of the American culture, where where Christianity is very much not only bringing the message of a Pauline escapist go to heaven Jesus, but is bringing a come to Jesus and also experience the wealth and the riches of Western American capitalism.
Everything you just said just drives home to me the predatory nature of this whole metaphor when it's used that way.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like fishermen, and I'm not dogging or should I say doging? I'm not dogging that.
Man, I need my drums. Where's my drums? Go ahead.
I'm not trying to critique that occupation, right? But here we have the disciples. They made a living by catching the fish, which again, it's not a great way, not a great end for the fish, but yet they profited off this, right? They made a profit from it. That's their livelihood,
Their livelihood.
right? What a I mean, it just
Yeah.
it just doesn't work well for evangelism. So you're gonna go, you know what I'm saying? There's such a predatory nature to it. You bring up capitalism, you bring up colonialism, you bring up all of that European expansionism and all of that stuff. I mean, I can see why fishing works for that, because man, it is super. So there are some strong parallels. You know what I mean?
And the success of the church today, even apart from that colonialism, the success of any Western a Christian church anywhere in the world is tied to its membership growth and its income retention and income growth. It is so tied to capitalizing upon human and economic resources. That's how you determine success in Christian churches today.
It's an industry, just like the fishing industry,
just like fishing. It is totally that.
Yeah. So again, I think
so. You're saying this is not what the passage is saying.
I just think that the metaphor works when you interpret it that way, but it doesn't work the way that you want it to. It's not
doesn't seem like it's what Jesus is about.
Right. It's not working well. It's not but there is an alternative.
Okay.
Just like many things, there are other ways to interpret it, still biblically. So if we look at some passages from the Hebrew scriptures, the first one being Jeremiah 16:16. I should have made slides for this, but For those of you who are watching, just bear with me here. I know when
Herb's
people
been a little
start
bit lazy on the slides. I just want to point that out. I haven't seen slides in a
in a
long
long
time.
time, in a long time,
Just
it's true. And it's the moment you start reading things, I know people they glaze over, but try to hang with me. Jeremiah 16:16. But now I will send for many fishermen, declares the Lord, and they will catch them. And after that, I will send for many hunters, and they will hunt them down on every mountain and hill and from the crevices of the rocks. That is the first example we have. And it's an example of when the Hebrew prophets were speaking truth to corrupt, unjust people in power. And
mm,
this was the metaphor being used for catching them and removing them from
mm,
the way you catch a fish and you remove it from the lake. You're catching that person from their position of power and you're removing from them. The other one is Amos 4, verse 2, speaking about those who oppress the poor and crush the needy. It says, the sovereign Lord has sworn by his holiness, the time will surely come when you will be taken away with hooks, and the last of you with fish hooks. And then the last one I'll share is from Ezekiel 29, 1 through 6. And it's talking about the abusive king of Egypt at that time. It says, in the 10th year, in the 10th month of the 12th day, and the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, set your face against Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and prophesy against him and against all Egypt. Speak to him and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against you, Pharaoh, king of Egypt. You great monster, lying among your streams. You say the Nile belongs to me. I made it for myself. But I will put hooks in your jaws and make the fish of your streams stick to your scales. I will put you out from among your streams, pull you out, sorry. I will pull you out from among your streams with all the fish sticking to your scales, and I will leave you in the desert, and you and all the fish of your streams, you will fall on the open field and not be gathered or picked up. I will give you as food to the beasts of the earth and the birds of the sky. Then all who live in Egypt will know that I am the Lord. Each one of these examples where someone is likened to being the recipient of the fishing activity,
mm-hmm,
they are, in each one of these examples, it's a position in power, a person in a position of power or privilege who is wielding that position in harmful ways. And the prophets are saying you will be removed from
hmm.
your position. And Ched Myers, if anyone's out there is a fan of Ched Myers from the Bartimaeus Collective Ministry, he's got two books where he talks about this. The first one is in his commentary on the Gospel of Mark, Binding the Strong Man, a political reading of Mark's story of Jesus. On page 132, he writes, there is perhaps no expression more traditionally misunderstood than Jesus' invitation to these workers to become fishers of men. The metaphor, despite the grand old tradition of missionary interpretation, does not refer to the saving of souls, as if Jesus were conferring on these men instant evangelist status. Rather, the image is carefully chosen from Jeremiah, where it's used as a symbol of Yahweh's censure of Israel, and elsewhere, the hooking of fish is a euphemism for judgment upon the rich, as in Amos, and the powerful, as in Ezekiel. Taking this mandate for his own, Jesus is inviting common folk to join him in the struggle to overturn the existing order of power and privilege. And I think about it, keep in mind Jesus flipping the tables there in the temple,
Mm-hmm.
Jesus's protest there at the end of the story in the Synoptics. In Meyer's book, State of This Mountain, Mark's story of discipleship, this is on page 10. He writes, in the Hebrew Bible, the metaphor of people like fish appears in prophetic censures of apostate Israel and of the rich and powerful. And he quotes the verses we've just looked at. And then he says, Jesus is, in other words, summoning working folk to join him in overturning the structures of power and privilege in the world.
Hmm.
So if Jesus were working like John the Baptist, where he was speaking truth to power and calling for change and calling for the beloved community, regardless of what you refer to it as, even if you want to call it the kingdom, which is what the Gospels refer to it as, it was a new way of organizing human community, human society, right? And it was in
Right.
opposition and contrast to Rome and the complicity of the temple state with Rome. And then he looks at these disciples and says, I'm going to teach you how to fish for people. This isn't about expanding the Christian church, which didn't exist, by the way, at the time where
Hmm.
he said, fish for people,
Right. Right.
but there was oppression and injustice and all of that. And Jesus is saying, I'm going to invite you to engage in the prophetic nature of the
Hmm.
work of fishing for people. What does that mean? And it doesn't work out well for the fish. And I think Caiaphas, Herod, and Pilate understood that. That's why
Yeah.
Jesus ends up on a Roman cross. He was seen as
Right.
a threat to their way of life. So there's an alternative. There's a different way there of understanding this metaphor. That's from the Hebrew prophets.
And I think that's it. And I think what struck me when you were bringing that and bringing the messages from the Hebrew prophets was that when you think about what he's doing with the disciples, is he's not taking them and creating evangelists, or even when we talk about these disciples becoming apostles, we still think about them being sent out to win people to the way of Jesus. He's really trying to create a school of the prophets. He's trying to create people who are going to carry forth this prophetic message in the tradition of the Hebrew prophets, which, yes, sometimes are called to proclaim good news to the oppressed, but also are called to proclaim condemnation and judgment upon the oppressor.
Yeah.
And
It's Isaiah all over again. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, and the Spirit, it has been is the Spirit was poured out on my servant, so that he might establish justice in the earth. That's what we see happening here: is the attempt to establish justice in the earth. Well, what does that mean for those who oppose the establishment of justice from the earth? Well, that's the work of fishing for those people. Remove them from their places of occupation so
yeah,
that justice can go forth.
yeah. And I
The
think that's good
metaphor
because,
works way better for me there than it does for evangelism.
yeah. And we see in other places when Jesus is calling the disciples to him and he says, follow me. There are those places where Jesus says, follow me. That's when he's asking people to join him in his work of doing the work of the kingdom. But that following him is a different metaphor. He doesn't use that where he says, catch these fish so they can follow me. That's
Yeah,
not
the
what
fish
he's
aren't
saying.
following me.
The fish are not
You're
following him.
following me in fishing for the people.
You are
Fishing the
ending
people. Yes.
these fishes, these little fishies' reign in the ocean, in the sea. You are ending
Right.
their existence as far as them of where they are living and reigning. This is it's really, I mean, this is a compelling and outside the box. I mean, I only know this because we hit this passage about a year ago, and when you brought this to me, then this was really compelling stuff. But I think
It's a
it
paradigm
fits.
shift. The other interpretation is so ingrained, right? That it's
Right.
part of our muscle memory. And it takes a little bit of effort to even critically think about the traditional interpretation. But if we're honest, it doesn't work well. It's not the
No,
right message. Who wants to be on the end of a fishing hook?
that's right. That's
Really?
right. Yeah. Who benefits from the fishing experience?
Oh my goodness.
Not
Not the
not the
fish.
fish. The people catching the fish, they're the ones benefiting. And Jesus is saying you're going to benefit not just yourself, but other people when you get these folks
Out of power.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, Todd, if there are any contemporary applications we could make to this way of reading fishing for people
Your
who are in
sarcasm,
power.
Herb, is overwhelming. It's just dripping off your face. Your sarcasm is just, I almost can't take it.
I mean, U.S.
Yes,
aid. Should we talk about U.S. aid?
man.
Should we talk about the
I
Department
mean,
of Education? Should we talk about people's retirement or their careers for the government being? I mean, I just read a story of a 66-year-old man who's too old to go. Who he feels like he's too old to offer someone else another job, and his government job he just got fired from,
yeah,
his federal job,
yeah,
and he voted for the person that's in office right now, and he's
right.
like, oh my gosh, and he just
What did
lost
I?
his job.
Yeah,
He doesn't have enough time in to retire. And let's turn over the financial IRS records to an unelected citizen, right? And see where that goes.
right. A citizen who has no need for any support at all for anything. He can do whatever he wants. It will not affect him. He is the richest person in the world. And so he can slash and burn without regard to anybody or anything, because none of it will hurt him or the cronies who are with him, his fellow fish. I mean, you want
Yes.
to talk about a fine kettle of fish. The school that is in power right now and what they are doing, they are all of one accord and going after it. And they are all protected by their own wealth and by the power of the person who put them in place. And they have nothing to lose, so they can do whatever they damn well please.
If there was anyone that ever needed to find themselves on the end of a fishing hook, and to become a skillful fisher person at this time, in this way of, you know what I mean, to be able to, to stand up alongside those who are being harmed right now by all of this,
Yeah,
and to work towards the removal of those who are doing the harm.
yeah,
Just to me, the analogy works so well here textually, but also there's such relevance and life-giving application of it when you're living the way that the disciples and the people in Jesus's time were living, under the thumb of the elites, under the thumb of the powerful, the privileged, the propertied. That's what we're seeing. Your kettle of fish, that you're mentioning, what all of a sudden the metaphor makes a lot of sense now.
yeah. And this isn't, we're angry because our party lost power.
It has
We're
nothing to do with
angry
party.
because we want the power. It's not because of status. It's because right now already people are being harmed
We haven't even talked about immigration
drastically.
status.
Immigration, people being already on the plane to Guantanamo. We're talking about
In Gaza, all those people that said, I'm not going to vote for.
a new trail of tears of relocating an entire ethnic population out of their homeland. We're talking about dramatic, egregious harm to people that is being discussed and in some places implemented already. All these NGOs who do such important work for the poorest of the poor around the world, all of a sudden have had millions, tens of millions of dollars stripped from their budget. They're having to furlough or lay off staff who were doing the work of investing those resources from U.S. aid to help strengthen and serve countries and people in those countries who were in desperate need. And we are all of a sudden, there's a
and what we're
huge
doing
domino effect.
Right. And what we're doing, the excuses, we're trying to make, things more efficient. We're cutting, through the waste. But so you're fine tuning, if that's what you're doing, the item on the federal budget that only takes up 1% of the budget. I mean, think about that. USAID only costs 1% of the entire federal budget every year. And that's what you're going to clean up and try to You know what I mean? Why
Yeah.
would you start at the 1%? You know what I mean? That just
Right.
seems so wasted. And if we talk about immigration too, one of my son's good friends was born here, grew up here,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
is a citizen here,
Yep.
but their single mother is not.
Yeah.
And so he's about to lose his mom.
Yep.
16-year-old son kid about to lose his mom.
Yeah.
And she's all he has.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that for just a moment.
Yeah.
I mean, the heartlessness.
That's right.
I mean, this is where the Hebrew prophets would get angry and say those people need to find themselves on the end of a fishhook
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
yanked out of their power.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Social Security benefits are now at risk.
Yep.
That's the
Medicaid.
elderly. So, I mean, just where does it end? Where is it going to end? And there's nowhere to tell. It's a new feces show every week.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
new spread of which communities are being harmed this week. Financial aid for students, Department of Education. That's coming down the pike.
Yeah. There's and this. I mean, this is going to have to be the thing. Is we're going to have to be creative and engaged on how
Yeah,
to protect those at risk and seek to undermine and and undermine their power and harm their capacity to harm.
yeah. Disrupt the
Um,
narratives. At least when you hear the conversations going on around you, disrupt the narratives. I know not all of us can do very much, but all of us can do
right,
something. And
right,
whatever is in our sphere around us to do, whatever it is in your power to do, now is not the time to stick your head in the sand and pretend like this isn't happening.
right. That's right.
So Jesus is calling us to be fishers of people in the Hebrew prophetic sense, how it was understood in that tradition. That's what I think.
Yeah. And let's be clear, and to make another comparison between then and now. He is being as ridiculous and absurd and op- overly optimistic about what these peasant people can do against a
Roman
behemoth of an
Empire.
empire.
Yeah.
If you and I are feeling like we are gazing at a giant monster who cannot be defeated, and we've just got to put up with it for 4 years, Jesus is saying it's time to go fishing.
It's that hopelessness or that futility, rather, the futility. What can I do? All my
Mm-hmm.
attempts are so futile. It's that futility. That is the context in which Jesus would say things like, if you have faith the size of a mustard
That's right.
seed, you
That's
can
right.
say to this mountain, talking about Jerusalem's complicity with
Mm-hmm.
Rome,
Be
you can
cast
say
into
to
the
this
sea.
mountain, be removed. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And it's not talking about miracle working, faith healers, all that stuff. These are political statements
And
said
he's
in
saying,
the
don't
Hebrew prophetic
underestimate what
tradition.
you have,
Yes.
even you. Don't
Yes.
underestimate. Do not underestimate what you can
Our
do.
collective power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this becomes, I mean, man, this becomes so weighty when you read it this way versus, hey, I need to go preach to my church about how we need to tell other people about Jesus. Tell
So
other
they can go
people
to
about
heaven.
Jesus about what? About what? What do they need to know about Jesus for? They're the ones being deported. They're the ones losing access to aid and assistance. They're the ones who are not going to be able to get loans to go continue their education. They're the ones who are going to lose their Social Security. They're the ones who are. What do they need Jesus for? Jesus, if he was here, would have been fighting for them on this stuff.
And if we're not careful, that whole paradigm presents Jesus in such an anesthetizing way that what it becomes is exactly what Marx called it, an opiate of the people, where people say, well, Jesus is going to get me through, and you become passive and you just hunker down and you hope to make it to the other side.
I'm going to suffer in this life, but then there's heaven.
Right. Where that is not the Jesus we find in the Gospel of Luke.
No. It's about finding solidarity with one another in the struggle and recognizing that together we help one another become liberated.
Mm-hmm.
And like you have quoted many times, is it Jackie Lewis who says this, or who is it? One of your favorite womanist authors who says, if salvation is never for one, it's for we all get there together.
Yeah. If there is such a thing as salvation, she says, none of us are saved till all of us are saved.
Yeah. And that's where that's our call to salvation. That's our salvific work as a people.
That's right. So this amps me up, man. Reading it like this gets me excited to go do more.
Yeah.
To go do more. Just keep at it. Keep your hand at the plow.
Yeah.
That's a gospel plow I can keep my hand on.
Yep. Yeah, that's good stuff. Anything else you got with that?
No, I'm sure we'll have fresh applications each week of this as we move forward.
Let's just pray that the lectionary doesn't move us to the Gospel of John. Let's just hope that we keep staying in the synoptics. We're going
to be in Luke for a while, I think. Have you looked? Okay. Have you checked that?
I haven't looked ahead. I didn't want to spoil the story, so I haven't looked ahead.
Hold on, I'm going to look right now because I have to have it spoiled. I'm just so... Please let us stay here for a while.
At least Lent, I know we'll get back. We have to do the traditional Lenten passages, but as long as we're in Epiphany, which Epiphany goes for a while, hopefully we're staying in Luke.
Oh, we're in Luke at least. This is February. This weekend is coming up as February 9th.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4. My mouse jumped. Don't you love it when that happens? 1, 2, 3. We're at least in Luke for the next 5 weeks.
Oh, good. All right, we can make
That's another month in Luke.
And then even when we get to Lent, even if Lent puts us into some different passages, we can frame things in a Lenten perspective, which we are. Our political season is very Lenten, so.
We're even up into the 4th weekend of Lent, still in Luke. Oh. We don't leave Luke until the 5th weekend of Lent, where we drop into John 12 for a minute. And then the next 2 weekends, or the next, we come right back into the Gospel of Luke.
Okay.
So that really in the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, out of the next 11 weeks, only the 10th week are we in the Gospel of John. The rest of them were in Luke. So you got your wish.
I'm very happy. And I can tell you that just this last 15 seconds of people watching you count up the weeks, that's compelling. That's compelling television right there, my friend. They're going to
hit that like button just because I did that. It was
like the anticipation was rising with every week that you counted. It was like, oh, wow. That's
second only to reading something on camera.
I don't know why we don't have a bigger audience. All right, man. So you got to tell us a little bit about what's going on with Renewed Heart Ministries.
Okay, Renewed Heart Ministries is, for those of you who are new, once again, Renewed Heart Ministries is a faith-based nonprofit that is passionate about helping people find the intersection of their faith and social justice engagement in our world. You can check us out, renewedheartministries.com. There's all kinds of free resources there. We have podcasts, we have this show, we have a weekly blog that comes out. There's all kinds of stuff there. Just check it out. And I want to say, too, just a special thank you to all of our supporters out there who support the work of Renewed Heart Ministries, that enable us to continue our ongoing work. Just cannot communicate in words how grateful we are for you and your support of that ministry. And if any of you out there would like to join them in supporting Renewed Heart Ministries work, you can do that by going to renewedheartministries.com and clicking donate. But just those of you who are already supporting, thank you. Thank you. Todd, tell us about your coaching. How's your coaching going?
Well, frankly, it's not growing by leaps and bounds. It's very small, and that's fine. It's okay. That's all right. But I just want to tell you that part of what I can offer, and part of what coaching does, is to also help people learn how to be advocates for themselves first. If you've been a person who has not believed in yourself and has not understood who you are as a human being, and if you were a faith-based person, that you understand who you are in God, if you haven't really embraced your true magnificent humanity, coaching and what I'm passionate about in my coaching is helping you get there. Not just because I want you to know that about yourself, but because I know what happens to people who do know that about themselves. They become fierce advocates for others. And you don't have the same ability to advocate for others when you don't know you yourself are worth advocating for. You need, not because of your ethnicity, not because of your gender, not because of anything about yourself makes you worth advocating for, is because of who you uniquely are, that you have developed as you have grown into the person that you are. This is special. This is worth being honored and respected. And once you can do that for yourself, then you understand why it is so desperately needed in this world for people to be passionate advocates for others who may not have the ability to voice the advocacy for themselves, or need help to getting the volume up. People who know who they are and respect who they are become amazing advocates for others. And that's where my heart lies, is seeing people who are freed to do that. So if you're somebody
Todd.
who
I
wants
love that.
to move in that direction and know that about yourself, so you can do more for others, I'd love to do that with y'all.
Excellent. So you can check, Todd, your website's not on the thing this
No, I
week.
didn't
Tell
put
us
it
your
up
website.
tonight. Sorry, tjlcc.com.
Perfect. There you go.
So
All right. Well, anything else this week?
I think that's it. Great stuff again this week, man. Thank you very much for taking us through that, and thank you everybody who joins us. We love this community. We love the time we spend with you, and just keep doing what you're doing. We keep just living your life, living the message of Jesus. We know you do good work. We know sometimes you suffer for it, and we're just grateful for all that you
And
do and for who you are.
no matter how big your fish hook, your effort is not futile.
That's right.
Not futile.
That's right.
So keep at it. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.